having a wonderful day. My name is Ola Ojuko, and thank you for joining us. We're so happy that you've decided to, and we're really excited to kick off. So before I introduce you to our wonderful speakers today, I thought I'd introduce you to us. We are the Honeycomb Works, and we're on a mission to help everyone at work feel that they belong and that they are free to invent. We offer consultancy training and a digital behavior change platform to develop inclusive and innovative cultures. We believe that cultures are created habit by habit, person by person. So we're really pleased to have people committed to inclusion joining us today. Now, this leads me nicely onto what we'll be discussing today, which is allyship and what it looks like during South Asian Heritage Month and beyond. Now, if you enjoy this discussion and you want to share these insights with your colleagues or employees, we are running an event in collaboration with Hannah Lit, which includes a fireside chat with her, a how to be an ally workshop, as well as a Q&A with our DEI experts. I'm going to share the link in a moment with more information, so please feel free to get in touch on LinkedIn or via email, which will also be shared. So, I'd like to now introduce you to Hannah Lit. Hannah is an accomplished equity, diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism senior leader and speaker. She has been recognized for her expertise across industries such as automotive, construction, retail, financial services, and technology. Hannah Lit is an esteemed award-winning intersectional strategic storyteller who will revolutionize your understanding of equity, diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism. With her unique ability to humanize tough conversations and inspire actionable insights, Hannah will leave you deeply moved and committed to sustainable action. As a South Asian, neurodivergent, disabled Muslim woman, Hannah brings a wealth of personal experiences and deep insights into the intersectionality of race, religion, neurodiversity, and disability, whilst always focusing on safety and well-being. Her expertise as an award-winning equity, diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism senior leader across the various industries further solidifies her position as a thought leader in this space. So we're so pleased to have you joining us today, Hannah.
Thank you. That was an intro.
Really love it. And we are also joined by Melissa Sabella, who is our founder and CEO. Melissa is started the organization with a mission for everyone at work to feel that they belong and that they are free to invent. She founded the company in 2016 and has worked with leading global organizations, startups, and SMEs across a variety of industries, using research, data, and technology to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion. Prior to launching the company, Melissa was an entrepreneur, leading global teams to deliver market-leading, innovative new products in large organizations. She has successfully managed multiple transformation projects and is regularly invited to speak on innovation, culture, and inclusion by organizations such as BNY Mellon, Innovate UK, and the Royal Academy of Engineering. As a gay woman in tech, she is deeply invested in creating a more equitable world, but also as a white woman with a couple of valuable passports, she has a certain level of privilege that she tries to leverage to fight inequality. Melissa is an Italian American living in London, following women's football and trying to be a better global citizen. So, without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to pass over to you, Melissa.
Great. Thanks so much for those introductions, Ola. And meet Ola, our brilliant marketing lead and diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant at the Honeycomb Works. You'll probably be hearing a lot from her over time on LinkedIn and various other channels, but also an anti-racism expert as well. So very pleased and very excited to be speaking with Hannah. She's one of those people that I felt like I had a parasocial relationship with. I was following her on LinkedIn for quite some time, always just really respected what she had to say and the courage with which she said it. And so finally just said, hi, can we talk? And then we had a lovely conversation, and hence a partnership was formed. So thank you so much, Hannah, for joining us. And as it is South Asian Heritage Month, and that is the theme for our conversation, I thought we'd start with also probably a good introduction to you with the theme of the month, which is free to be me, which obviously, as folks who work in belonging and inclusion and are looking at othering and all these other aspects that come into play at work, what does that mean to you? How does that theme sort of speak to you?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of known as like the South Asian Heritage Month disruptor now, because every year I'm like, but can we look at it from this perspective? Do you know what? When I saw the theme, it felt a bit like I wrote a blog, and it felt like a bit of a punch in the gut, actually.
Oh.
Because when you look at free to be, I think looking at the way the world is right now, I've never felt less free to be me right now. And I think for me, it was really kind of looking at South Asian Heritage Month. Don't get me wrong, there is things to celebrate, but looking at us with our intersectionality, looking at how communities within the South Asian communities are still less free than others. So how are we having those conversations? Are we understanding that what I did, but also what does free mean? What does it for the South Asian community? What does that even mean? What is freedom? Free to be me, and so that the whole thing just made me ask a lot of questions. I think from that aspect, it's a great theme because it really allows us to start digging. But I think on the first instance, it was like, let's just celebrate everyone being free, and I was like, no, that's not, because with the way, like I said, the world is, I've never felt less free to be me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think often with these months, there's this weird sort of balance tension between, I mean, just as a gay woman just coming out of Pride, we always have this argument, is it a party or a protest? And it's sort of a bit of both, right? It's both a celebration of who we are, but also let's not forget the fight that we're still fighting. And obviously with everything that's happening in the world for the South Asian population, which is a very diverse population in itself, really interesting how that theme sort of both spoke to you and challenged you and raised a lot of questions. And I think during these months, it's good that we're not just flying flags and being cheery about things, right? It's an opportunity for us to have the difficult conversations as well.
Absolutely, and like you just said in your intros, we're global citizens.
Yeah.
So actually, we can't just look at this in the fact that I live in England, and it's not so bad apparently, and all of this. Like, we have to look at it from a perspective of being a global citizen. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And I think that sort of, you mentioned intersectionality, I think both in the introduction and in what you were talking about, and that word is getting thrown around a lot lately. And I think like often it gets thrown around in this sort of like feel goody kind of, hey, what are your intersectionalities kind of thing. And we sort of have to, I think, remind ourselves what that actually means, what the origin of it is, and what it's trying to address. So can you speak a little bit more about how, not just what it means to you, but sort of how you weave that into your work as well, and how that sort of shows up in practice?
I have to weave it in because, again, if we're talking about, not everybody wants to bring their whole self to work, but if people want to bring aspects of themselves into work, then we have to look at things intersectionally. I'm not just a South Asian woman. When you start digging, so I'm from actually the East African diaspora from after kind of indentured servitude. So, we have to look at sometimes the othering that even happens within our own community, and it's not always intentional. But how do we start to break the systems? Because my end goal is really to create unity and empowerment for everyone, to help us move forward, because we all have more in common than those in power, so to speak. So actually it's really helping to identify. But I think within my own South Asian community, there is so I have hidden disabilities. So people, I still had it 2 days ago where someone was like, why have you got a blue badge? I said, because I'm disabled. And they said, what? No, you're not. Because there is this whole, and it's not, you know, when you look like me and you have your race, first, I can't turn this off. So having to put more labels on yourself when life is always, we've been told that we have to work 10 times harder than our white counterparts. So, but also there's a lack of data and there's a lack of like education for the South Asian community as well, and I'd say the Black community as well, on how neurodivergence shows up for us, how hidden disabilities show up. The fact that, you know, a lot of my hidden disabilities are the impact of trauma. So how does that all interweave? So I have to talk about it intersectionally, because otherwise I'm just talking about this much of me, and other people are only talking about a tiny fraction of us.
Yeah. And it does help provide that context. And I think when a lot of people struggle with some of these concepts, it's like, well, I know this person who fits into this specific box or has this one aspect, and they're doing okay, or they don't have the same struggle as you. And it's important to understand how those layers sort of interweave and impact overall treatment and perspective.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something really important there that I think we always like to explain to organizations, which, you know, there was this movement for a while about bring your whole self to work, and I think this idea that you shouldn't actually have a private separate life, and I think for a lot of people that's a really big ask, and for some folks they like to keep some of their life separate. So we always like to say it's about bringing as much of yourself as you want to at work, right? So and it's one of the conversations we have within our team, as much like as a startup, you know, we're careful not to overstep, because there's also this mentality of, well, we're a family and everybody should be invested at the same level and all, and it's not, that's not fair. Actually, it is a workplace. We do have a professional relationship. So how do we make sure that we are both creating space for folks to share what they want to share, while also maintaining a healthy boundary and not forcing people to share things that they just prefer to keep private?
That's it, right? It's allowing people to show up and it being okay. It's okay for people to have bad days. It's okay for people to, you know, not be on form or lively, or, you know, have their camera off when they need to. I think that's really, really important, because we're being in the South Asian community, and I know some of the Black community that have like African sounding names. So many of them will change their names for the workplace to make it easier. Now we have, you know, for a long time now, we've been talking about how important identity is. So, you know, it is that people live in kind of two different lives. So, you know, at work, this is my name and this is what you call me. And then when I'm at home, it's very, very different. I'm a different person. That in itself is masking up to a certain extent. So, you know, and it's your code switching, all that. It's so tiring. It's like a full-time job in itself. But also understanding how that shows up intersectionally. So I was never very good at code switching, because my ADHD would just take over. And so many people would say to me, Hannah, you're so courageous, you're so brave. But that's come at a cost too. It comes at a cost of being, so it's very easy for people to kind of look and go, oh my God, what you're saying is brilliant, it's spot on, I agree. But then how are you going to support those people? Because it comes at a cost, whether that be financially, emotionally. You know, it's really, really important that those people are supported, because everyone will do what they do in their own way. But those that do speak, it comes at a cost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think we have to be very careful about when we tell people to be brave, have courage, be yourself, because we might actually be telling them, put yourself in harm's way, take a financial hit, and which sort of shifts to the next question of it is the responsibility of the organization, of a workplace. They have a duty of care to make sure that those costs are at least minimized. Obviously, they should be striving for complete elimination of them, but we have a journey to go on. So have you seen any examples of either organizations, teams, leaders who are doing things that are supporting their South Asian employees and making it more of a safe place for them to be?
I mean, I don't know. I can't talk for startups, but the organisation, no, the answer is no. I would say for some. I would say for some. But I think what we've seen in the last 10 months is that, you know, me and my friend created a whole CIC based on the fact that people were not being treated. And, you know, people, it is political. It is. Our lives are political, you know, because actually when we look at political decisions, they impact our lives. They impact, you know, we can't say it's not political when we've just seen a cost of living crisis impact everybody, because their decisions are made, they impact people. So all communities are asking for is to get care, to be given the care that they deserve. And I think it's a very start, like, you know, you could be great one day, but the minute you speak or the minute you ask for something, then it changes. Which then, you know, people don't want to bring their whole selves to it. They don't want to bring any of them. They literally want to come and do their job and they want to leave, and ideally remotely. But then we miss out on a lot. We miss out on a lot. So for me, I honestly haven't seen an organisation where I'm like, yeah, do you know what? Really doing it, all your people. I think some organisations do great stuff for certain groups of people, but not every group of people. And I think when it comes to being South Asian, the model minority myth is a thing. You know, we have also in our community, but it comes from empowerment, and that's what I'm really trying to do, is empower my own community. Because when we look at, you know, you look at the gender pay gap, Pakistani and Bangladeshi women are at the bottom of the pay gap. About that. But we have this very, keep your head down, be quiet, just get on with it, just work hard and you'll be okay. And then we look and we see some representation, but you're like, okay, but not enough. And I can't really identify with that person because that person might look like me, but their policies, what they harm me. Is that what you have to do to reach there? Or, you know, so it's very much actually having, I will say to my South Asian communities is have courage, do have the courage, because the biggest thing is have courage to create community. Because as a community, if we're together, nobody can really say anything. And that's what we created with kind of our CIC. And that's why I've kind of started up on my own now, to really allow myself to bring, you know, I'm also a social justice activist. And people hear that and they're like, whoa. Social justice is just it's diversity, it's inclusion, it's access, it's, you know, it's giving people access that they need, and it's human rights. Why would organizations not want to embrace social justice? And our Gen Z population, they're not having it. I'm so proud of Gen Z. I say it all the time. They are amazing. I'm so proud of them. But they're not having it. So organizations have to start really moving forward. And people say it's a journey, but your journey has a destination at the end of it. We don't just get on the train and go, take me anywhere for however long it takes. There has to be a destination. Otherwise, Gen Z really care about where they go to work and if employees are doing the right thing.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's interesting when we look at gender data, because there are a lot of similarities and differences within generational data within and between, and I think we've been seeing that trend for some time, and it'll be interesting to see what happens over time, especially in a difficult economic environment. But yeah, I do think there's a lot more being asked and a lot more awareness of that at the same time as we're seeing many organizations sort of pulling back. I think over the last few years there were some causes, some social justice movements that sort of globally everybody was like, this is an easy answer, this is something we should get behind. And then they found out that this is actually quite hard, and some folks might have to give up some power. Right. And then they realized that there were actually more complicated global conflicts. And I use complicated in sort of quotes, in that everybody around the world wasn't universally sort of cheering me on when I made a statement or comment about this particular thing. And so I think what we're seeing now is a real reticence to actually talk about or engage in anything related to social justice, and a sort of a let's just get back to doing business piece. But I think something you said in there really, really important, like, this is just about fairness. This is just about, and don't you want an organization where merit is is the thing that is helping people advance and get ahead, and where you're developing and supporting people's talents equally.
Yeah, right. It sounds so simple, doesn't it?
That's what we're talking about. Yeah. And as you said, global majority, and you're right, like community. Yes, communities need to band together. But then there's another piece that you talked about earlier, which is coalition, which is
Right.
There's a lot in common amongst the global majority group of people when we unite and we work towards a common goal. And I think we're seeing that in the US right now. And whatever your opinions on the Democratic candidate, what she is fighting against and what she's trying to stave off, we're seeing coalitions coming together to actually make that happen and protect the most vulnerable, who will be.
Yeah, we see that. Here in the UK, I love a good protest. So, being out there, it's really the most beautiful thing is, I was out there 10 years ago, there's 6 of us. Now there's thousands of us. But all people are asking for is, like you said, fairness and humanity and kindness, but also the beautifulness in the communities just coming together that you wouldn't normally see come together, to realise that actually just oppression is oppression.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is just stand together, and that is something that is really beautiful that has come out of this, and that is, people that just have a shared desire for humanity. And when we realise actually when people are being oppressed, it impacts our environment, it impacts our climate, everyone needs to be involved. And for me, it's just this real big piece around unity. But I think when we look at leaders as well, I don't believe that a lot of leaders are inherently just don't care and they're bad people. There's a barrier that they can't get past.
Yeah.
I think when you've realised how systems have been built, and then you are the CEO, for example, naturally you're going to be like, do people think that I've got there just because I'm a white straight male?
Doesn't feel great.
Yeah, of course, but you know what? We need white straight males that are leaders and women. We need you on this journey too. So a big part of what I do is create, I'm not a business coach, but the profits will go up. But I create safety. So one thing I've realized is that I can create safety. I'm very direct, but I'm very direct with my care. And it's to work with those leaders to just say, like, here's your safe. People, I'm cool with people feeling discomfort. For me, that's great. But everybody deserves to be safe.
Yeah.
So for me, it's creating that environment for those leaders as well to really start to unpack. We all have biases. We all have, I've not met somebody, but the awareness and then what to do about it and equip them, because for them to move forward and make decisions on something they have never lived necessarily, or they don't really know about, never had to think about, it's quite a lot for them to do. So how do we empower them to also have the tools to really drive the change that we need them to, because actually they impact people's lives. So how do they also deserve safety. So that's a really big part of what I'm kind of trying to do now, is give everybody safety, because ultimately I don't believe everyone's inherently bad and we all want the same, but what are the barriers that are stopping people to get in there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit on a couple of things there. One is, and we've heard this from leaders that we work with, I simply don't see it, right? Like it doesn't occur to me that something would be othering or unfair. So they need that support in order to being able to identify it when it's happening, when it is more subtle, right? When it is not something that's overt. And then that point of when you become a leader, often you've done so by being confident, right? And knowing what you're talking about, and having a vision and a clear perspective. And they're being thrust often into a space where they're not sure. They're being asked to be vulnerable and learn. And I think that piece of supporting them through that journey and giving them someone they can ask the questions of,
Right.
is a really big, one of the things we always start with is what to do when you get it wrong, so that you actually feel comfortable taking action, because everybody's going to get it wrong at some point.
None of us are. Sometimes I trip over fresh air. We all are really wonderful. But at the end of the day, none of us learned how to ride a bike without falling off. So for me, it's allowing, just creating that safe space for our leaders, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's as a group, to really unpack that stuff, feel safe, because we need them. We need them to move. We all need to be together to move this forward. And, you know, they have power. So we need you on board. So, but I think there has historically been, we've kind of gone, you are a white cis straight man, you know, and they've got a lot of flack. And actually, some of the most supportive people have actually been white straight cis men. So
absolutely, yeah. I mean, tons of our support come from those folks who are bringing us into spaces, funding our work, like doing absolutely.
So I think it's some people just don't want to do it, and that's okay. You know, what I'm not saying is go into harm's way by any means, but I have the ability. I can carry quite a lot on my shoulders, and for me, there's a real when you kind of know what you're here to do. I always say I'm here to break some generational curses, but I'm not here to do it on my own. So really, everything I do is underseated with empowerment and unity, because we need to do it as well in the South Asian community too. We need to unify. A lot of the like anti-Muslim hate I get is from people that look like me.
Oh wow!
So we need to really start unpacking the assimilation to whiteness. Is that a survival technique? Are we still in survival? How are we going to address actually the things that have happened to us as a community? There's so many stories I tell to people, and they're like, "That happened to us." Yeah, it did. We just don't talk about it.
So one of the things you do, and I'm going to hand back over to Ola in a minute because we're nearly out of time already. But one of the things you do in the fireside chats, which will be a part of the event that we will do together if you bring us into your organizations, is that you recommend that the person who interviews you is from somebody from the South Asian community who's also from the organization. Can you talk a little bit about why that's important?
I think it's really, we're in 2024 and we're still talking about how to drive this change. And of course it's got to evolve, but some organisations just haven't done it or started. And again, I like to believe because there's a lack of knowledge or a barrier, but we have to get past that now, because this is, you know, it impacts people's lives, and, you know, our communities are dying essentially. So for me, it's very easy for me to come in and deliver a keynote. I've done it before. It's great. Everyone claps and I leave and they go, okay, that was Hannah's experience. She's not here anymore. So for me, it's about really, as I'm about amplifying voices, amplifying the voices of those in the room that also look like me. So organizations really have that moment where they go, hold on a minute, that's not just Hannah's experience. It's that person's experience too. And what I try and do is just allow them to say as little or as less or as much as they want to keep them safe. But that's what I'm there for. I'm there to really help have those conversations, but also leave that person in the organisation. So every time they're like, actually, no, that wasn't just Hannah's experience. It's real life, and it's in our organisation. So we really have to drive this forward. So there's kind of like a level of accountability there, but also just that when people are like, I don't see it. That's your employee who you think is great, but do you know that actually they're a carer? And we don't say we're carers, it's just our culture. Do you know that actually their real name is blah, blah, blah. All of these are just really kind of allowing them to humanize, for me to humanize the people that are in there as well.
Yeah, and it turns it into less of a just checkbox, hey, we did something nice for this month, to actually now we're going to take that and weave it into and think differently about our daily interactions and things in our organization.
Absolutely.
Great, fantastic. So I think, Ola, are you going to come back and pull us off stage?
Yes, I am back. Thank you both. I really enjoyed sitting back and actually listening, absorbing and taking a few notes. But again, thank you to everyone else that has joined us and that is going to join us. We really hope that you were able to pick up something new. Just a reminder that if you did enjoy this discussion and you want to share these insights from Hannah and Melissa with your colleagues or employees, we are running our South Asian Heritage Month event. And again, it includes a fireside chat and a how to be an ally workshop, as well as a Q&A with our DEI experts. I've shared all links in the comments of this live, but please feel free to get in touch with any of us on LinkedIn or via email. And we really hope to see you at our next afternoon tea. Have a good day. Hope you're able to cool down. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.